Happy Monday, everybody. It is Master Flame with our this week's edition of Master Motivation. And this week, my guest is Master Brandon Kemmer from Cutting Edge Karate, one of my training partners. We earned our black belt in Krav Maga together, and just an overall great guy that you're going to enjoy getting to know a little bit today. So what's up, Brandon? How we doing?
What's up, Jay? How's it going, everybody out there? It's good to see everybody. Well, I don't see you, but I see Jay.
Nice. So if you're watching, guys, hey, drop us a quick comment in the comments below and just let us know that you're out there. And by the way, if you have any questions for Brandon as we go through this interview, if you will, this conversation, please just ask any questions and I'll make sure that we get to those throughout the show. So, first question I like to start with, I've only had one guest so far, but
Nice.
you're number two today. And I always, just so everybody understands our relationship, do you remember how we met and how long ago we
I've been doing karate so long. I started when I was a little kid. So I don't remember the specific time that I met you because, I started when I was 6 and I was probably like 7 or 8 when I met you. So I don't remember the specific time. I just remember that every time we went to tournaments, it was like, that's the Jason Flame school. Like, like that's the tournament dude, right? And so it was like, you had this kind of like tournament competing aura about you that I was always like, oh man, that guy's cool.
Yeah, that was, so 6 or 7, how many years ago was that?
Oh, geez. Like 20 years ago.
Wow, 20 years. So this was back, and I was teaching for Mr. Cox at Chatsworth Karate on the old school location, DeSoto and Lassen.
Yep.
So, I remember training a lot with your brother, who I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more later. And
yep.
I remember you as a younger, a young kid, really. And now, here we are training together all these years later. So, I just want to get started and let you share with our audience, share a little bit about your background, not just in martial arts too. I think that I've got a lot of martial arts friends and a lot of martial arts guests, but what I really hope is that people get to know the people that have motivated and inspired me along the way. And that's the whole reason for having you on the show, is just to let people know more about those people. And again, you're one of those people. So let's start as far back as you want to go with your background, and we'll just kind of work from there.
All right, perfect. Yeah. So I was born, and then I came out. Oh, okay. So, but anyways, so I guess my karate training started at the church at Rocky Peak. I'm sure a lot of people watching are familiar with the church at Rocky Peak. A lot of us got our start in there too. Some of the people like some of the people that might even be watching, like the Reeses, and I'm sure the Reeses, and the Fishers, and my family, and a lot of people. That's where Mr. Cox started teaching at first. I think Mr. Carlin started there too. A lot of people started at the church at Rocky Peak, and I was 6 years old at the time, and we were attending that church for a while, coming from a little tiny church in Reseda or something like that. And then we went to a much bigger church at that time and made kind of a switch over. And Mr. Cox was running a free, I think it was free, a free karate program at the church at the time with Mr. Knight and Mr. Buchanan, some other people that are big names to us. I'm sure for you, Mr. Flame, had some, influences by those guys too. And so we started there, and I think I was only there for about 6 months before he decided to open his school on the what was it, DeSoto and Lassen, was it?
Yep.
Right, DeSoto and Lassen, right? It used to be where the 99-cent store is now. And so we got our start there, and I was always kind of I kind of enjoyed everything that I did, right? And I'm kind of still like that, right? But I really enjoy just doing things, right? And so whatever I'm doing, I have a good attitude about it, and I enjoy it. So my parents kind of put me in a lot of different things. So I did karate when I was young. I did gymnastics. I did baseball. I did lots of different things. I've played ping pong and volleyball and lots of stuff, right? And they put me in a whole lot of things, acting and drama classes and musicals. And so I've done a whole bunch of different things. And the only thing I didn't like was soccer, though. I can tell you that. Like that soccer still today, I'm like, no, I won't even let my sons like touch a soccer ball. Like, don't touch it, right? You can do anything else but soccer, right? So, but yeah, so going up through the ranks, though. So, I mean, even talking to Mr. Cox, I've asked him before because I don't have a lot of videos from me uh, as training when I was a lot younger in martial arts, and so I've even talked to Mr. Cox about it. Like, do you remember what kind of student I was like? And you know, he's always said that I was just kind of like an average student, right? I wasn't, you know, spectacular. I kind of did some gymnastic stuff, so I incorporated some flips and things like that into my karate. But as far as from a technical perspective, back then when I was a kid, I didn't really care about details of things and doing things. I just enjoyed just doing stuff with people. And so I just enjoyed whatever I was doing. And so I got my black belt when I was 10. And a little bit after that, I was about to get my second degree black belt. But then like I said, my parents had me in so many different things. And they were really trying to find something that really like kind of stuck to me that I was really passionate about. But I didn't have a lot of that. I did have like the drama and the musicals that I really liked too, but nothing was like it was just super passionate about it. It was more just like I just enjoyed everything that I was doing. So they were trying to find that. So they pulled me out of that and they tried me in some other things. I was homeschooled all my life too, up until what was it, 11th grade. And so they decided, well, maybe we should put you in school and see how that goes. And I hated school. School was awful, right? School was, I went to Santa Susana out in Simi Valley, and up until that point, I was very outgoing, and I didn't really have any like insecurities whatsoever, right? And even at church, I was like, you know, Mr. Goofball, crazy person, right? And then when I went to school, it's like, what is up with all of these people here, right? It was like a whole different like environment of like, okay, there's like, you know, all these cliques and these people, and you can talk to these people, and these people you can't talk to. So it was this very weird like moment for me of like, okay, like I feel like I'm not like these people at first, right? So getting adjusted to kind of like normal life was in school and being around other people who do have all these insecurities and are like judgy and there were certain rules or whatever, like social rules that you had to follow was different for me. So yeah,
it sounds a lot like how things are now if you look at social
right.
media.
A
Right?
little bit, right? A little bit. It was like that, yeah. And so then I just kind of like, there was like a lot of these like really popular people, but they were like, you know, I was like, I don't really want to be a part of them because they were, you know, not necessarily making good decisions that I thought were, you know, that I wanted to make, right? So I ended up kind of hanging out with, you know, more of the geeks, I guess you'd call them, right? So the computer geeks. So I kind of became a computer geek myself and got involved in computers, and I ended up going off to DeVry University and got a network administrating degree. So I got a bachelor's in network administrating. And so that was, you know, when I was, I went to DeVry and I got my 4-year degree in 3 years. I did that, and that's kind of how the DeVry program works. You take about 18 to 22 units a term or whatever, and you do 3 terms a year. And so I finished that in 3 years, and then I got married to my wife, Nicole, who I met at the church at Rocky Peak when I was 16. And yeah, so we met there, and we dated all through high school. And she was my only really serious girlfriend. And we were together, 6 years, and then we married and have been married ever since, and have 2 kids, and that's been awesome. But I got married right after I graduated from DeVry. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, but then after that, I mean, my brother was running a studio all through that time. He started a program in 1999 at a school called Egremont in the Valley. And it was a private school, and at the time it had a whole bunch of students. He had like 50 students in the class, and we started there, and we started teaching there. And then he got involved with Mr. Cox, and they started doing a bunch of different after schools all throughout the Valley, and at Faith Baptist schools and some of these other ones. And And I was just like a teacher for him. He asked me when I was 17, because I hadn't done martial arts for a long time. And he asked me, like, do you want to teach for me? And I was like, well, I haven't done martial arts since I was a kid. I haven't done it since I was 11. Like, I don't even remember how to do anything. Right. And so, the first time he's like, well, why don't you just try it and see if you like it, and then we'll just go from there. Right. And so my first teaching experience is I went to, I was probably 17, 18 years old. And I went to the class, and he got me like a uniform and stuff. And so he's teaching, and I'm just kind of leading and helping him. And all of a sudden he says, hey, Brandon, can you demonstrate a form for everybody? And I'm like, oh, I can't believe Travis just did this to me. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So I did basic form number 1, and I don't even know if I did that right, because I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here, right? So the first form, I was like, I don't even know, right? And so even afterwards, it's like, he's like, why'd you do basic form number 1? That was kind of lame, right? I'm like, well, you just threw me
that's the
out
one
there.
that doesn't leave you. That's the one that doesn't leave you
That's
ever.
the one that doesn't leave you, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So then after that, like, it was just a matter of time where it's like I started teaching more for him, and I started feeling like, hey, I need to probably get better at this thing if I'm going to be teaching people. So that's when I kind of like found like, wow, I really enjoy martial arts, and that started becoming my passion. And I started in teaching and martial arts became my passion. And I started really digging into how to do everything, and I became very detail oriented after that. And the rest is kind of, there's a lot of other things that have happened since then, but that's kind of the rough history.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to that, in a second. I mean, what a lot of people that are watching right now that know you as Master Kemmer, Cutting Edge Karate, one of our American Tang Soo Do Alliance schools, black belt through America's Best Chatsworth Karate, through the Krav Maga program. And so, a lot of people are hearing things about you that, man, they just never knew. The fact that you had stopped martial arts altogether before coming back to teach. You literally jumped back into martial arts, really, because of teaching and helping your brother. You would never imagine that you have such an outgoing personality. You pretty much get along with everybody. I've never seen someone that you don't get along with, and you've got that. You definitely do have that goofball, like you said before.
Right.
I can totally see that back in middle school, high school. But a lot of people
Yeah.
watching only know you as, this person that they've seen for the last, 10, 15 years running a martial arts school. So, to hear stories, real quick, just want to share this. John and Mary said that you ended up to be an incredible instructor for my husband and I. You and Daniel were the only two that I like getting my stripes from, because I knew that I truly earned them.
Nice.
And
That's my sister.
Let's go back to being a child. What were some of the things that you struggled with as a child that maybe even quite possibly carried into your adult life?
Yeah. I hit on that briefly. It's when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily really apply myself to one thing and really want to do it well, right? It was more of like I just kind of was doing it, right? So I liked to do it, and I'm pretty athletic, so I was decent at a lot of things, but I wasn't really great at anything, and so I didn't really, like, people would teach me, but I wouldn't really necessarily take it to heart and really try to do it the best I could possibly do it, And so, like I said, it wasn't really until I started teaching that I started realizing, like, you know what, like, if I'm going to be telling other people how to do things, I need to tell them how to do it right, And so once I kind of got into that, then that's when I started becoming much more detail oriented and wanting to just kind of become the best possible teacher and the best possible martial artist that I could become, because I felt this very heavy weight of the students, and making sure that, hey, these students have to know that have to do it the right way, And so I'm still not perfect, obviously, in either of those two areas, but from when I first took over the studio, from when I first started teaching to now, there's a huge world of difference. I've grown so much in my knowledge and my teaching, and just learning from you and Mr. Cox and the super things from the Super Show and business and all this other things that have I'm completely different from when I first took it over from Travis.
And so as a child, I mean, you kind of you talk about being a jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of the term,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
when did you really realize that, and what was the turning point, or what made that change for you?
Yeah, it's the for me it was the teaching. It was the teaching. It was when I started realizing that people are relying on me for their information, and for them to get good at something. That was like, okay, like I can't just do this halfway. I've got to like make sure that me personally is, and even that too, like the journey from for myself as a martial artist, because I've had a lot of different teachers over the years. I started off with Mr. Cox, but then when my brother took it over, he became my teacher. And to be honest with you, I hadn't necessarily like fully in like jumped into training at that time. I was more of a teacher, and I had to kind of get my technique up to snuff to be a teacher, but it was more about that than it was about becoming a really great martial artist. So I just kind of like learned what I had to, and then I kind of went along from there for a little while. And then, great Grandmaster Ichikawa, he has these forms DVDs that he put out years ago, and I bought those, and those became like my study guide for the forms, right? And so I have watched countless hours of those DVDs when I started, and I just tried to do everything exactly like he did in those DVDs, to the point where it was kind of bothering Travis a little bit too. He was like, "Come on, like this is how I do it." So it became like this thing in the school of like, "This is how I do it. This is how Brandon does it," and I'm like, "Well, I'm doing it the way Ichikawa does it," and he's like, "Well, I'm doing it the way that I learned it, right?" So and so it kind of became this kind of like dueling kind of thing, which probably wasn't great on my part. I should have just done what the owner of the studio was doing at the time. Looking back, it was like that kind of thing. But so I studied a lot there, and it was like, okay, so I want to do this really well. And then once Travis left, I was a part of an alliance with Conrad Ercolano, and he's got a school out in Agora, and so he became my teacher for my 4th degree black belt, and so I got my rank under him, and then I went to Mr. Cox after that, and went back to Mr. Cox, and he became my instructor again, and so I've kind of had a bunch of different instructors along the way, and now I'm back to Mr. Cox again.
It's it's always that kind of full circle. You go through a lot of things and find yourself coming back to what worked best, or what was kind of more like home, right?
Right.
I know for sure I've had that in my career, where I've gone through several different instructors, and I have always come back to Mr. Cox, Mr. Chikawa. But I think that that's part of the growing process too, as an instructor, as a martial artist, as a business person, that you need that outside influence, if anything else. Maybe not necessarily to compare and contrast, but of course, let's throw it up there real quick. Always back to daddy.
That's
And
right.
always welcome back. Yeah, Mr. Cox. Thanks for watching, Mr. Cox. But I think we've all gone through that. I know Mr. Cox has gone through working with different instructors, and it just
Yep.
brings all of that experience into one, and ultimately makes your school a better place for your students. You talked a little bit about the transfer of the school from Travis Kemmer, your brother, to you. Travis is someone that I remember training with when I trained at Chatsworth early on back in 93, 94, those years,
Right around there.
95,
Yeah.
96. And I mean, dude, he was a tough guy. I mean, he was always someone that I thought was super tough. Trained hard. He was one of the early black belts in at Chatsworth, and all those names that you mentioned before, people that aren't part of the alliance or part of Chatsworth Karate probably don't recognize all the names, but the Reese family, the Kemmer
Yeah.
family, those were all the Fisher family. Nathan
Yeah.
Carlin early on, Mr. D. Um, just all those people. There's a lot of stuff that goes back to that time. But talk a little bit about how it's always interesting, how we become owners of martial arts school, because here you are, you come back as a teenager to teach for your brother, and then all of a sudden you're now the owner of the school. Talk a little bit about how that took place.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, I was in a completely different career path. I had just gotten my Bachelor of Science in network administrating, and I got a job outside of right after college, and it was not in that same field. But then after that, I became a network administrator. I became a network administrator of a place out in Newbury Park, and then I got a job at a place called Coast to Coast in Simi Valley. And so that was kind of what I was doing. I was full-time network administrator. And then, but I always had taught at the studio the whole time because I really enjoyed it. I really did love teaching, but I never thought it was something that I would do for a career. It was just something that I was just going to do on the side because I just really enjoyed it. And because I also didn't think that Travis was ever going to step out of it. I thought it was something that he was going to do forever, and I just enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily, it just never occurred to me that that's something that I would even want to do. It was just something that I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm a part-time martial arts instructor and doing this, right? So eventually, so in 2008, Travis approached me, and he started doing this bodyguarding work. And he did a bodyguard job for this one CEO. And after that meeting, he came up and talked to me, and he said, "Hey, man, I was doing this bodyguarding work, and I got to talking with this guy, and he's offered me a job." And I'm like, "And?" He's like, he's like, "So?" And he's like, "I think I'm going to take it, right?" I'm like, "No way. Like, what does that mean for the studio? Like, what are you talking about? You're going to take it, right? Like, how could you do that?" And, like I think that Travis, his passion was more about the business of martial arts than it was about the teaching of martial arts. And, he did enjoy teaching, but I think that his main passion of it was to make it successful and business first. And I think that's a good thing to have too. But my passion is at that point, especially, and even now, is teaching first. And I just love the students and the knowledge, and just the knowledge transfer that goes with that, and then seeing people grow and seeing people get better. And that was kind of my passion. And so when he said that he was stepping away, I was like, well, what does that mean? And I had to take a second and be like, well, I guess that means that I have to take it, right? So, and it wasn't like it wasn't an I have to. It was just a huge like bomb that just went off, and I was like, whoa, okay, so does that mean I have to leave this and go over here, or can I do both somehow? And I didn't, and I just had to start figuring it out, right? So he told me that, and I was like, well, I think even a couple hours later, I was like, well, I want to do it. I'm going to take it, right? And so what do we need to do? And so he ended up selling it to me, and I bought it from him, and I started off as doing it part-time. So I bought it, and I continued doing full-time over there, and then right after I would work, I would come over here and teach. So I was probably, working pretty much all day, like 7 o'clock to like 9 o'clock at night, almost every day. And so that was, I was doing that for a little while, and that was pretty tough. And how long ago was that? I think it was 2010. So I did that for about 2 years. And if you remember, 2008 was the recession hit. And so that was bad. So I took it over, and we lost like 50 students within like a couple months, right? Maybe, yeah, within the year, we were way down. We were down to like 50 students. It was really bad. And so having it part-time was like, okay, well, if I go full-time on this, it's going to not be making money. I'm going to be losing money, and my wife's job is going to have to support it, right? And but if I don't stop this job, then I'm not going to be able to grow this job because I don't have any time to grow the job because all my time is over there, and so it's split. And so I had to make that decision of, is this a full-time thing that I can commit to? And in 2010, I decided, you know what, that's just going to be what I have to do. And so I stopped that completely and went 100% here. And that was such a huge decision. That was a very difficult decision, but it was such a great decision that really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And then a couple of years after that, I got more involved with you and Mr. Cox and all this other stuff. And it was a great decision, one of the best decisions ever.
I remember really early on when we reconnected. We actually reconnected through Maya, and you became a Maya Elite client, and I consulted you for a period of time. And I remember you struggling with that challenge daily of, I got the day job and I'm trying to do martial arts. And there's a lot of school owners out there that are facing that, where they're working the dual job just to keep their passion of teaching martial arts alive, because without that second job, it's hard to pay the bills, but you want to keep seeing people grow and you develop. One thing that I think people lose the most and don't really truly understand is the relationships with the people within your school. I mean, you literally become this second family. I mean, it's the reason that many of us are still training together and working together. It's because of the relationship, really, not necessarily the martial arts, although the martial arts is what really ties us together. But I remember you struggling with that, and I remember when you first made the break, and it was like this big sigh of relief, because now you could really focus on growing the martial arts school. And here you are now, 10 plus years later, and you've moved your school. You're on Ventura Boulevard now, which is like the spot in the valley, right? I mean, there's no bigger street. Ventura Boulevard's got a long history of businesses all the way down. As a matter of fact, the first original Tarzana Karate, Mr. Ichikawa's school, was also on Ventura Boulevard, a little ways down. But talk about some of the struggles once you did quit the day job. You went into teaching martial arts full time. You started to learn what made the business such a challenge for you, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Right, that's a good question. So I had no idea how to run a business when I first took this thing over. When I was, because I was also 22, something like that, 2008. So I was 20 something. I was early 20s when I took it over, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I kind of treated the business at the time as the same way that I did when Travis was running it. I just kind of come in and teach, and then I'd leave, and I wouldn't do any promoting, any marketing, anything to keep the students, or the teaching would be to keep the students, but nothing beyond that. And I just kind of kept doing the same thing that I was doing, and just teaching, and just seeing my numbers just drop, right? And just people just stopping. And so I was like, I need to figure out how to do this. And so a few years, I ran that like that for years, and then just started trying to figure out, and started, okay, well, how do I do marketing? How do I do this? How do I do that? And everything I'm just learning on the fly. Nobody's taught me how to do this, and I start doing it. And so I was in a pretty bad spot, and so I reached out to Mr. Cox, and that's part of the reason why I switched over to him at that time. Was I reached out to Mr. Cox, and at the time I hadn't spoken with him in years, because him and my brother were kind of had a little falling out there, or a big falling out, and they weren't really on speaking terms at the time. And I reached out to him and said, hey, I would appreciate, like, if we could just have a meeting or something and just kind of talk, that would be great. And so he was kind of hesitant, like, why? Like, why do you want to meet with me? And I'm like, well, I just want to meet and just kind of go over my studio with you and just, get together and see what's up. And so we got together, and I told him the situation. I was like, I'm bleeding out students. I'm losing money every month. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Right. And I know that you have a successful studio, and, can you please help me? Like, tell me what to do. Right. I have no idea what I'm doing. Right. So he said, okay, he's like, you need to do these 5 things, right? So he writes down, like, here's your profit centers. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to implement a black belt club program. You need to, do this, right? So he had 5 things that he wanted me to do. He's like, do these things and then call me back, right? Once you do these 5 things. And I'm like, okay, cool, right? Now I have some sort of direction to go, right? So I do those things and I come back and I'm like, okay, I did those things, like, what else, right? And he's like, well, you need to join the alliance. You need to join the American Tang Soo Do Alliance, which is Master Ichikawa's alliance, right? And at the time, like, I was with Herculano, and I was like, okay, well, that's a hard decision because I'm really close to Herculano. That's hard, right? So let me get back to you. So I took a little bit of time to figure out if that's actually what I wanted to do, and I decided what was best for me and my family and my school was to make that jump. And so I made that jump, and then I've, met you, and he's helped me, mentor me a lot more in the business. You've been huge in my business and still are huge. And I go to you for advice on so many different things. That's when I started going to the super shows also and learning a lot through that. And yeah, so that was kind of how it went.
Yeah, it's really easy to be stuck in a bubble, and not just for martial arts schools, but for any business owner, to be kind of stuck in your bubble, and the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and hoping for different results. It's just, you got to get outside that comfort zone, and I know how uncomfortable that was, to break an alliance, so to speak. Although I know that, although we're not connected, Master Icolano was one of my original instructors as well, and so I think the relationship is still good. But to break that alliance and make a change, and and start doing things that you weren't doing before, and trying to really learn. You mentioned going to the Super Show, and for those of you watching, the Martial Arts Super Show is the largest trade show in the world, sponsored by Century Martial Arts. I remember the first time I went, and it was eye opening. But getting outside that comfort zone is just, so crucial and so important, because if you just continue down that path, you may have gone out of business, especially going into a time like this, which is extra hard. You got to have a pretty strong business plan to really stay afloat and to keep moving forward. Something else that you did kind of later down the line is, and we kind of did it at the same time. Not sure if it was for the same reasons, but you started Krav Maga training. You had done traditional martial arts, Tang Soo Do, for years and years and years. And well, the reason that I decided to do Krav Maga was that, as Mr. Cox has always said, our self-defense was lacking in our traditional martial arts, so we wanted to put a bigger focus. But for me, it was never about the belts. It was just about the knowledge. It was kind of like we got talked into doing the belts, and I'm glad we did, because we both earned our black belts together, which was awesome, and the most amazing experience I think that I've ever had in martial arts. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, especially later in life versus being younger. But so you've incorporated Krav Maga, and talk about how Krav Maga has changed your school.
It's changed it significantly. I think I started pretty much for the same reasons you did. I love Tang Soo Do. I love the art of Tang Soo Do. I love kicking and the forms and the details that it provides. But like you said, it was lacking in self-defense. And so I never really was interested in Krav Maga. I never really wanted to do it. And every time I heard it explained to me, because like I said, I'm like a detail guy. So every time I heard it explained to me, it was like, it's like a hammer, and you just hit stuff and you just go, don't overthink it, just do. And so to me, that mindset was like, well, that doesn't sound fun or interesting. And there's probably not very many details then. It's just, they just kind of tell you to just hit stuff, right? And so I think my perception of it was off. It was just, oh, it's just this mindless, blunt object that you just hit things with, right? So I was very hesitant of starting it. And so I had other people around me that were doing it. And I'm like, I don't know. And finally I was like, you know what, but if I really do want to improve the self-defense, I probably should start learning some. And so I started going to some classes. And after about 3 to 6 months, I started realizing that the way that I was approaching my, I guess you could say, my basics and forms and things like that, where it's very detail oriented and it's very specific on how to do things, was kind of how the way Krav approaches its self-defense. And for me, I was like just missing all of these details and just these new ways to do things. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like I didn't realize just on somebody's choking you how detailed that is. And yes, there's a mindset of the aggression and the hit and all that kind of stuff, but that's more of a mindset thing. It's not necessarily that the techniques are lacking, details. It's that the techniques are very detailed, but you need this mindset to do them effectively. And getting that mindset for me was something that I hadn't had, because I think that for me, my martial arts at the time has been very demonstrational. So it's been very much of a show. So I'm a performer. I like to put on shows. I like to do flips and I like to do crazy looking things and very unique and crazy one steps and stuff like that, right? To get people like excited. So that at that time, it was like very much all about like the show of it. And I didn't know that it wasn't necessarily a self-defense. I would have said at the time that I'm self-defense mindset, but I didn't realize how much I wasn't. And so then learning Krav has been really much, has completely changed my mindset on what a true self-defense art is and how I can incorporate that into my Tang Soo Do, even in my other areas of martial arts and teaching. And like you said, getting my Krav Maga black belt is the hardest thing I've ever done in martial arts, by far. Every test is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Right? Yeah. It's super difficult. It's very hard, but it's hard for a purpose. Is that it's that difficult because that's what it takes to kind of get your mind to switch gears, to be like, this is what self-defense is. And we need to be able to make that switch if somebody were to attack us and meet that violence with more violence, and kind of embracing that was huge for me. And because I'm not a violent person, but I need to be able to make that switch to meet violence with violence. And that was a huge eye opener for me. And getting my black belt with you and Robbie was so cool. And again, one of the best things that I've done.
Well, you talk a lot about the mindset shift, and it's just a good reminder too that I feel like we were on the same path as far as martial arts goes. We enjoyed the performance aspect, we enjoyed the art, the detail. I'm, as you know, a very detail-oriented person. Details are everything to me in every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
I definitely OCD to the max. But the mindset is what I love the most, because I think it's truly changed the way we think and approach anything else. Because look at how we're dealing with COVID right now. As a martial arts school and COVID out there, it's hard for us to run our business. It's hard for us to do. But the mindset that says, if it's hard, it's worth it. Right.
Right.
And I know you've gone through it, and I'm on day 42 now, but 75 hard. Mindset shift. When you're making yourself uncomfortable and you get comfortable being uncomfortable, you have that mindset of whatever it takes. That's always been in self-defense what I've thought, even though I wasn't always doing it. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
it takes. whatever it takes to get over an obstacle, whatever it takes to get past something. If I have a goal, I'm going to achieve it. I mean, yeah, no doubt those pre-tests, they absolutely sucked. And I knew that if we didn't feel like we put everything out there at the end, we would hate ourselves for it. And so that mindset is what is really changing our life in a lot of different ways, because God forbid, hopefully we never have to defend ourselves or our loved ones. But we have the awareness to be prepared, we have the tools to be prepared, and we just have that mindset that we're always going to be as ready as possible. I think Mr.
Absolutely.
Cox says, train hard so you're hard to kill.
Hard
um,
to kill. Hard to kill. I love
that was
it.
a. Do you remember that movie, by the way, Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal? That,
Yes.
that's an
Totally.
old one. That's
Old
old. Anyway,
one. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but mindset. I think that that's important, and what I want to just kind of wrap things up with is, you talked a lot about Mr. Cox, and you and I both share him as someone who is very important and a mentor in our life in a lot of different ways. Um, who are some other people? Because I know you're very religious as well. I know you're an elder at your church in Pasadena. Who are some other people that are mentors in your life? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my faith has been a huge part of my life ever since I was a little kid, and that's a whole story in itself. But the shortened version of it is that I grew up as a non-denominational Christian, and I definitely I was very legalistic and I was very judgy, and so I was like that for a long time, all through high school and through much of college, even, right, to where I was very judgy on people's sin and their mistakes that they were making, and I always thought I was uh, less sinful than other people, right, and that I was somehow better than other people, and that's kind of how I operated most of my life. I wouldn't have necessarily said that, but in the back of my mind, that's kind of what I was thinking, that I'm not as bad as that person, right, or that
Mhm.
person, right, that kind of thing. And so, a couple, even just a few years ago, I've switched over to become an LCMS Lutheran, which is just a different denomination, and through that and learning about myself and who I am and my identity in Christ, and that I guess it just painted a good picture that I am very sinful, and I am just as sinful as you are, and anybody, and it just kind of showed me the depth of my sin, and then through that, it really showed me the sacrifice that Christ made on my behalf and His death on the cross, and how that applied, and how that was so impactful and such a huge piece. Because if you don't think you're that sinful, that taking away from what His sacrifice actually did for us, right? It's really taken away from that sacrifice, because He didn't die for that much. I'm a pretty good person, so like, what is He really dying for? But if I'm this wretched sinner that doesn't deserve that at all, right, and that I need that sacrifice to apply to me, and His perfection to cover me, then that was huge. So seeing that huge shift over has made me, in fact, a better teacher and a better person, and a better, in so many different ways, to where I can, I say a better person, but like I said, I'm very sinful, but it makes me less judgy and less and more accepting of people and differences and stuff like that, and I can talk to people in different ways, because I can know that I'm no better than anybody else.
Well,
You know?
I've noticed, because I've known you for a long time. I've noticed a much more compassionate side,
Yeah.
an empathetic side. Some of my favorite posts. Your posts sometimes can be very thought provoking, and I really enjoy reading them. But some of my favorite posts are the ones that you post with your son, reading the Bible, discussing Bible passages. It's so, I don't know. It just makes me feel good to watch you as a dad like that, and teaching your son. And Mr. Cox, here, Mr. Cox commented. He said he loves us. We don't hear that much, by the way. Making him feel good.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry, I got sidetracked with that one. But yeah, some of my favorite posts are you with your son, and it it really changes you as a dad, as a parent, when you teach with your faith,
Yeah.
because I also grew up non-denominational Christian. It wasn't until my daughter was born that I was when she was baptized. I think it was 3 months later that I was actually baptized, and I had never been
Oh,
baptized in
okay.
my life,
Yeah.
and became a Catholic. And it just it's something different, and probably a topic for a whole nother interview at
Oh, yeah.
another time. And but what I also noticed too is my last guest, Kevin Kowalczyk. We have a lot of similarities in that realm. We're here talking to probably someone who is, although he's younger than me, but I look at him as my spiritual mentor, Danny
Yeah.
Cleary. If you're watching,
Yeah. Danny
Danny,
Cleary. Yeah. He's cool.
Danny has been, you talk about people come into your life for certain reasons. And I know for sure that God put him in my life to help me strengthen my faith, because even though, that had started with my daughter. So when I see it when I see it through my eyes, watching you with your son and talking about it, and we have a good, a good strong group of men that all share that same faith. And I just think that it's so important. Um, Talk about your father and
Yeah.
any other mentors that have really made a difference in your life, motivated you, inspired you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I have many inspirations and mentors. I mean, my parents are huge. I think I had truly amazing parents. My parents, I don't think could have raised us any better than they did. And they're a big reason why I'm still why I am the man I am today. And my dad is very, uh, he's very laid back, and I get a lot of my laid back and kind of chill attitude from my dad, and he's very hardworking, and I don't think I've ever met anybody who works quite as hard as my dad. He just built a cabin up in Pine Mountain in like what 8 months or something like that, or 9 months. He built an entire house, and he's built many houses before too, and he just works so hard. And I think that I took that for granted growing up, and I don't necessarily think that I was much of a hard worker growing up. And later on, I started um, becoming much more like that, and enjoying that hard work and what he's going through. And my mom, same thing. She's definitely the loving side and the compassionate side, and I get a lot of my empathy, like you talked about, like you said, you've noticed that kind of change in me. That's kind of been much that's been developing over the last few years of definitely understanding who I am, like as a person, like I said, but also my mom has always been like that, very compassionate, very um, has tons of empathy for everybody, and so that's definitely a side that I've grown into as well. Um, and my students will tell you all about that too. But you can see there, and then my pastor Mark Jasa has been a very big inspiration for me, and he's very knowledgeable and very, very. He's such a again compassionate and he's a passionate but also very compassionate person. And learning from him has been huge. And I ask him questions all the time about life and faith and different things, and so that has been really huge. My wife Nicole has been awesome, and she again very tons of empathy and love and compassion. I'm surrounded with all these people who really care deeply for people, and she's always got my back, and just being able to bounce things off of her and have her on my side as my teammate in life has been huge. Yeah, I've got so many people. I'm sure I'm missing a ton. My brother John, my brother-in-law John, has been huge. He's been like my financial mentor in a sense. Learning. I go to him, like it's like if I want to talk money, I go to him, and he's like going to tell me like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, don't do this, maybe do that. And he's been huge in that realm. And like I said, you and Mr. Cox for so many other reasons, martial arts, business, life, other things, so yeah, I've got a lot of people in my corner. Justin Reese, Daniel Weirman,
Hmm.
some of my best friends since they were little kids have been huge. And I always, just talked to Daniel like for a couple hours yesterday on the phone, just bouncing life ideas off of each other.
Mhm.
You know, so good. Yeah. So I've got a
That's
great team of awesome people around me.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, your circle of influence is what really forms you, and it shows that you have a great circle of influence. I'm going to give you a minute to just finish with some inspiration and motivation for those people that are watching. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that you've had a very big impact in my life. In all the ways that we've discussed, whether it be our faith, training. You're one of the toughest training partners I have ever had. I had to hold for you on every one of my pre-tests except for one, and I was thankful for that one. Um, Probably one of the most talented martial artists, and well-rounded martial artists. There's a few people that I would put you in the same category with, and my brother Jacob being one of them. Aaron Lawrence was another one. Nathan Carlin, Bo DeRocher, people that, because when I look at martial artists, I always look at kind of the well-rounded, good at forms, good at this. You really are now, even though you thought you were a jack of all trades and master of none. You have so many skills. Your students are very fortunate to learn from you because you have a great approach to how you teach. I know how much you care about them. I see that. I see that in your students, especially at testing time. I can just tell that bond. You've been very instrumental in Robbie and I and Dickie and all the guys that we train with at Chatsworth, making us better, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're the guy that sucks in the group.
Right.
But it's kind of what I like. I like not being the best, in the group, because I know that I've always got something to work harder. You're a family man. You love your wife and your kids. I see it. Not only on Facebook, but of course in
Right.
your actions and the way that you talk about them. So the whole purpose of me doing these interviews is to make sure that those people that I chose to interview now know how I feel about you and how much of an impact you've made. So I just want to thank you so much for everything you do, everything that you will continue to do, and everything that you have done. So what I want you to do now is I want you to give everybody 2 to 3 minutes of some flame, some fire, as
Damn.
far as motivation, inspiration. What advice do you have to people watching this now or will watch later? It's all you.
Perfect. Yeah. And I just wanted to mention too, real quick about you. I mean, I feel the same way about you, man. I've seen so much growth in you since we started Krav, and since I've gotten to know you, and since we've been training. Just your mindset shift and everything, and the way that you constantly help others, and just give. And you're so self-sacrificial in so many different ways. And I just really appreciate that from you, man, too. So I appreciate the kind words too. And you're a phenomenal martial artist, great teacher. I learned so much from just being around you and learning and taking classes from you and training with you. It's been awesome. But as far as the motivation, I think for me, let me talk about 2020 for example, right? 2020 was a really hard year for all of us. It's still hard right now, and I think that I've grown in a lot of ways since 2020, and in unexpected ways. And I think that it's important for me, and the thing that I want to tell everybody is to be you, and to not sacrifice your values, and to not sacrifice who you are and what you want to try to make everybody else happy, right? And if you do things in a way that you truly are passionate about and that you believe in, that people are going to flock to that. People are going to jump on board to that, right? People enjoy enthusiasm and passion. And so I think that before COVID hit, I think I was running my school in a way that I was just trying to please everybody, right? Somebody would ask me and I was like, I'm just trying to send out a big umbrella. I want everybody to come, right? And then, I do want everybody to train, but at the same time, I definitely know who I am more now. And I definitely know the way that I want to teach and the way that I want to run my school. And I'm going to teach it in this way. And if people don't jump into that, then I'm okay not pleasing that person and say, you know what, there's different schools for you. Like there's different places that you could go. But this is who I am. This is who we are. And I've got to tell you that it's so freeing and so relieving when you can get to that mindset, right? to where you can get to the point where you are just doing your thing and that you are following your passion and your desires and your values. And it just makes you a better teacher, a better friend, a better husband, a better everything, because you can you're kind of living the way that you want to, rather than you're living the way that you want, that everybody else wants you to live. And so I think that that's what I'm going to tell everybody is that is just be you, do what you do. Is that Toyota? But do you do what you do? What is that? Come on, that's something.
Dude, I can't even get there right now. Well, there's your wife. She loves your advice. She's trying to get there. Hey, what's your one word? One word for 2020.
Oh
I'm
man,
sorry,
and not a
2021.
that's probably better. It's
Yeah, what's your one word for 2021?
One word. Opportunities.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
My word is engagement. Thus, the interviews and just I think it's important that we engage and we work together. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing an hour of your life with me here today and an hour with everybody here watching. Guys, we'll get this up on YouTube in the next couple of days. You'll see it posted as a link. And please share it, because I know that an hour is a long time, but there's got to be some great tidbits that everybody can pull from this interview today. Brandon Kemmer's a great guy, and I'm just really fortunate to know him and to be able to work out and train with him. Coming up, just so you guys know, next week, I have Sean Nelson, a unique consultant. She has a beauty line, and this woman is, I mean, man, she's just fire. I just love it. She's going to be great next week. So I hope you guys tune in for that. The week after that, I have the pit master, John Hackelman. I hope to
That's
God
awesome.
that Facebook does not kick our video off. But I love talking with Mr. Hackelman. So he'll be on the last week in January, and then coming up in February. Just so you guys know, a couple of my guests in February. We got Derek Frater, we have Chris DePalma, we have Hillary Brooks, and Robbie Beard. So we got a cool lineup for February, and I'm starting to book out March. My goal is to hit this every single Monday right here at noon Pacific Standard Time. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Please make sure to like the video, share it, throw some comments, and Mr. Kemmer and I will respond later. Follow me on Instagram at master_Jason_flame, and also on Twitter at masterflame201. And you'll see this on YouTube at Jason Flame. So, Mr. Kemmer, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. And I look forward to training on Friday.
You too, man. It's going to be fun. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
All right, guys. Have a great week. Go out and make it happen. Think about what your word is for 2021. Mr. Kemmer's is opportunities. Mine is engagement. What is your word? Put it in the comments below, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.